A year ago, you said NBFCs were due for a correction. That time it was a contra idea. Now everybody is saying that NBFCs are due for correction. So is it time to buy? Is that the next contra idea?
No, I think that one should appreciate that it is the availability of cheap money with ample liquidity that fueled this NBFC boom. So every company had its own space. It was able to get whatever capital it needed at favorable rates, and it found the borrowers were always willing to do business on its terms. It was not a competitive market on both sides. Now I expect that the market will become competitive on both sides, which means that the businesses will be tested for their real potential, in the sense the spreads and stuff like that will get tested. It is quite certain that their cost of capital is going to go up by at least 100 to 150 bips. Whether they will be able to pass this on and still grow at the same pace, that is something that is a matter that on which the last word has not been said. I think that while NBFCs did tremendously well in a time when money was available at very favorable rates in ample volumes, I think that phase of tailwinds is good as over in the near future. One should understand that. Therefore, rushing back to buy simply because they have fallen by 10 or 15% does not make sense to me. Another aspect that we need to understand is that we had given very high valuations for these companies on the assumption that they would get favorable rates and ample liquidity in the foreseeable future. I think that has been redrawn. That premise has been clearly redrawn, which means that we need to redraw our valuation metric also for this space. So I would advise caution and not really take a blind contrarian view on the basis of stock price movement. One should see where the rates are going and how liquidity is going to be managed in the system. This is a clear macro call. I don't think NBFCs should now be dealt with as micro investment ideas. They work very well as micro investment ideas for an extended period of time. But to me, that party is now clearly over.
For the first time, interest rates have gone higher. We've seen worse macros than this, and the NBFCs have still survived. Look at good quality NBFCs. Forget an HDFC Limited or an Bajaj Finance. Even there are enough and more NBFCs which have a decent track record of 15 to 20 years. The Sundaram Group, Mahindra and Mahindra Financials, Chola Mandal. So today what is looking like a concern, oh my God, interest rates will go higher and tala lag jayega. I guess these cycles have come in the past and they've gone.
It is the valuations that are not really juicy at this point. I am not rating a demise of NBFCs. That is not my point of view. Of course, they have a place in the economy, and that is a very important place, and they will continue to do business. Growth will vary according to their competitiveness and the demand. Those are not aspects that anyone would dispute. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that we have factored in a very clean growth environment, which does not exist anymore. And I think that the valuation is something that you need to take with a stronger focus of the future. I think that we have been more lenient in valuation. That leniency is gone. That's all I'm trying to make a point. I'm not here to say that NBFCs are done and dusted with. That is not my point of view. Surely they have a place in the economy and they will occupy that space. But it's not going to be the easy times which they had in the near past. And for those times to return, you are very well aware that cycles take time. You can't really expect that those times will come back in the next 1 or 2 quarters. That is not going to happen. Whereas if you see the people who have invested in these companies, I think they have very high expectations and very low holding power. So if you have bad news, whether they will stick to it for 3-4 quarters is a matter of conjecture, and I would think against it. I would bet against that.
Okay. How are you looking at the oil story, Shyam, this morning? And how does that influence, all the associated sectors that get impacted because of rising oil?
See, till now you have seen that high oil price has not yet shown in the inflation numbers. But we all know that sooner than later it will. And you also have a high MSPs that will come in from November. So you are going to see inflation slowly rear its head, and we have to see how the government is going to fight this. probably the only thing you can do with oil price now is pray that something happens in the global, that the uncertainty goes away overnight. And I think that's the only thing that can help oil at this moment, because things seem to be drifting in a direction which is not favorable to India, and we need some miraculous intervention on oil for things to improve, which means that the businesses which are oil dependent will now have to show what this impact is. I think in that sense, the results of the current quarter are very, very important. And we will understand how this rising oil is affecting companies. Last quarter did give us glimpses of what kind of negatives can come to hurt. This quarter will give a far clearer picture. And we need to wait for these results. We're still a couple of weeks away. But I think the results are going to be a great pointer into how oil is going to impact our economy and how organizations, companies and industries are going to demonstrate their resilience to rising oil. And if you look at history and our past experience, companies can only show resilience, they cannot overcome it so easily. So I think that phase of uncertainty is something that we need to go through with, and we need to wait. The fact that we are heading into winter with existing high oil prices is again a cause for concern. And this space should be watched very closely. It can affect our investing much more than we imagine, and I would not like to trivialize the impact of oil on our investments.
Do you buy Yes Bank at current levels, Shyam?
See, I have been against investing in Yes Bank because I have no faith in the way the governance has been conducted in this bank, and I hold to that consistent position that simply removing somebody from the seat and then letting them to remain on the board and all these ambiguities are something that I am not comfortable with. I would stay completely away from Yes Bank until a new management, a new board and a new governance is born in this bank. Until then, I will just stay away from it. I have no faith.